Hello, this is David Baumblatt from Terabant Leadership. Welcome to the show. We are going to be talking about America and China, specifically in terms of their military might, political situation, and again, my prediction. Yes, we're currently in war with Iran, but we all should wonder, what are we doing? In fact, I wouldn't be surprised. It'd be an interesting poll because the Fox News and a lot of these conservative news shows are saying that the support for the war, at least something like Republicans, is the majority of them. I don't know, I'm hearing different things, but it's pretty interesting. But again, if you're MAGA and this is what you voted for, war with Iran, pretty interesting. I think we must have been on different wavelengths of when we were listening to Donald Trump. So I would be curious, though, the pulse of the MAGA movement, just in terms of this war in Iran. Is this what you voted for or not? It seems the mainstream MAGA movement is saying, yes, this is what we voted for. We'll see. It's going to be a failure of the war. Let's go. We're going to talk about those two subjects again and focus a lot more on China. But let's look at some of the hot topics in the news right now. So here we come. This is again about Donald Trump. And what I want to do is let me bring this back here. And I think we all understand what the term soft power is. When I was at Harvard, man, the guy died. Forgetting the guy's name. I know it's sad. He's a professor who, Joseph Nye. Yeah, Joe Nye. So he was a famous professor at Harvard. He was advisor to 7 different presidents, and he spoke a lot on soft power. Truth be told, I was never on board with China's soft power. We'll do another episode where I show you what I mean. A lot of the Chinese government are using what's called white monkeys. I'm obviously not getting paid by the Chinese government. I have no problem with it. But there's a lot of these white Western, particularly white Western influencers. Oh, they're getting paid. And the reason being is China, their level of soft power is very, I've said this many times, the Chinese, to include, they're very awkward people. In Chinese culture, which is a very homogeneous culture, it's fine. It's like fish in a pond. When the fish get outside the pond, well, they die. They don't know what to do. That's a little bit like China. So China will hire a lot of these white, and I know these people. It's so obvious. And don't get me wrong, I could say easily 50% of what they say I agree with. I'd be happy to show you some of these. It's obvious. I mean, these people are getting paid by the Chinese government, which in and of itself, I don't have a problem with. But I think it's like anything, Fox News, CNN. I mean, you're an actor. You're basically a paid actor. But it's so obvious. That's what I'm saying. We don't need to do it. So what's my point? China was never good at soft power. Guess what? They're doing very well. And the reason they're doing very well now is they don't really have to do that much. The saying in China now is basically sit back, meaning the Chinese government. Sit back and watch it crumble, meaning crumble like the American soft power. When you are a country like America that goes around and bombs, threatens your allies, meaning Greenland, this is not good, not good at all. Do you not agree with what I'm saying? Well, this is from X today from Donald Trump. What a fucking moron this guy is in terms of this. This guy's just not thinking. Anyway, so what does he say? He's talking about NATO. Without NATO, NATO's a paper tiger. I'm not disagreeing actually with that. Without America, NATO's nothing. They didn't want to join the fight. You know, he's whining. He's basically whining and he's insulting NATO. And what have I said all the time? Well, let's look what I replied up top. And this guy, I was like the bully in chief. If you don't like NATO, pull out. Don't whine like a little bitch. This is a draft dodger, this and this and this. So what am I saying on that? And I don't want to spend too much time on this. My stance on NATO is very simple. It is a raw deal for America. End of story. We still should be partners. We still should have an alliance. But so the point of what I'm saying is what Donald Trump could just do very simple is just say, listen, NATO, you either need to start paying more, helping more, this more, cool, calm, and collective. And if they don't, which they're not, he just tells Pete Hegseth, within 3 months, close another base in Germany, close Vicenza, Italy, close that, just pack up and go. That's what American citizens want anyway. It'll save Americans a lot. But to go out there as a draft dodger and whine about NATO, not just pull out. It's like, I guess you could say it's like the guy with a nagging girlfriend that just break up, just go. So anyway, very, very weird in terms of that. Let's go on to this. This is another thing. This is, again, where a lot of the MAGA, let me make sure I share it right here. This is where a lot of the MAGA don't get it. So whatever, Carolyn Levitt, it's fake. We know these people are fake. You know, and I say, why don't MAGA support military veterans? I just want, so this is Farm Girl Carrie. Interesting enough, I didn't know, so she follows me. I guess so. Thanks for your support. It'd be nice if you could repost, though. So anyway, Farm Girl Carrie disagrees with me when I talk about MAGA, this and that. And she says, you don't know what you're talking about, and you're flat out lying. Whoa. Trump has been the best supporter of military veterans. My husband is, well, maybe, Carrie, maybe for your husband, but not for me. And I'm guessing not for many people. And why do I say that? Well, I said a couple things. This guy is a MAGA. I don't know if you know, this is the Congressman Derek Van Oden. I've talked about him before. This guy's a shitbag Navy SEAL. He knows about me. But I said many times is you don't ignore. The point is I've been, I think I said maybe 2 comments, something like that. Anyway, these MAGA people, give it time. It's not going to work. And like I said, I'm not in any way advocating for the Democrats. I'm not any advocating. It's going to get worse, but you're going to see more and more MAGA people. You think that was bad with Kerry? Oh, get ready for this. This thing's retarded. Do you guys know? I don't know her that well. Do you know a Dana Loesch? She's a major influencer. Well, I wrote this same thing. This is just basically my thing. I don't know if you guys can see this. My bad. I'm sorry. Dana Loesch here. So this is my basically thing. I'm going to MAGA saying hi. I mean, I'm technically MAGA in some ways. I think Donald Trump is still the best president of my entire life. Said, you know, why don't you support this? What a dumb bitch this is. This is another reason why white men should have never allowed white women the right to vote. Just like Kerry before. They don't understand leadership. They should never be in positions of power. So she writes back, why don't foreigners like you understand whistleblower? What do you mean I'm a foreigner, Dana? Because I'm located outside the country? That's the whole part of the whistleblower. I'm not welcome back in the country. And in fact, Dana, I'm so glad I'm not in the military. The thought that I would have served, meaning I would have fought and died in the military for shitbag traitors like you, I am so glad I'm out of the military. And these are supposedly MAGA people that doesn't care. I mean, it's just fake. It's like a corporation. Like I said, at the end of the day, I think a lot of MAGA people are going to be screwed because you can't go to the Democrats. You can't go to MAGA. Where are you going to go? Not too many places. Let's just see here. We'll do a couple. Oh, I do want to do a shout out here. 1 second. Yeah, this guy Montgomery Granger. Hey, help me out. I went to this Soldier Whispers. I just want to say thank you. I said, can you support? There were a couple things I didn't reach out to. He told me. He knows we had a big conversation right here. He's telling me, hey, have you reached out? Now, I did reach out to the American Legion on X, but I didn't write them to their official email address. I did. And then he Veterans of Foreign Wars. But he spent some time. He's like, hey, contact this. Did you serve overseas? Yeah, I did all that. Now, and so anyway, Montgomery Granger, thank you so much for the advice. I learned from you, and I appreciate that. One of the things though is I didn't realize I had to do so much. I mean, the amount of people that know about me, the politicians, I've already submitted it that you shouldn't have to really try to get a needle in a haystack. If you're a military veteran or an American citizen and you have government corruption report, it should not be finding a needle in the haystack. I don't know, the politician responds to you, this responds to your government oversight. I mean, I've written so many people. But anyway, Montgomery Granger, he gave me a good idea with 3 military veteran, you could say, agencies. I wrote them. I'd be happy if you don't believe me. Some people have given me their email address, and I put you on CCs when I write these congressmen and senators, and I get feedback from their assistants, just blowing me off, totally blowing me off. Even Mike Lee gets it from Utah, the senator. You're a piece of shit. Mike Lee writes me back a generic. It's totally generic. You know, thank you, David Baumblatt, for writing it. I mean, you can tell he didn't even read my stuff. It is what it is, people. If you disagree with me and say, you know, David, you're not having a good customer service level with our government, but I am. I've said many times, my entire story is this. If I am truly an anomaly, less than 1%, then it is what it is. There's never going to be 100 satisfaction, whether it's in a corporation, a business, a side. There's always going to be people that get the short end of the stick, and that's fine. But if I'm not, and I don't think I am, if I'm not, which is part of the reason why Trump got elected, if more and more people are as disgruntled as I am, this system's going down. I mean, I'm not paying any taxes. So let's go to one final thing, then we'll get to the China. This is news. And this is, let me just bring this up here. This is when I think about why did we vote for MAGA? And why did we vote for MAGA? Well, because we want to fight racism. That's what we want to fight for MAGA. So let me see if this thing is up. 1 second. Okay, good. 1 second. Let me bring this here. I think here's better. So what is MAGA up to? Department of Justice. Anti-Semitism. Oh my God. That's priority number one for us. Hopefully when we're finished bombing Iran, we'll finish. So what did I wrote? Nice. MAGA is fighting anti-Semitism. This is exactly what MAGA is all about. Fighting racism. Whenever, whoever, and whatever. MAGA has a mission. We're going to destroy racism throughout the entire world. That's what MAGA is. So happy for that. Yeah, that's a big priority for us is anti-Semitism in America. Okay, so here we're going to go. So let's get back to the subject of, what's interesting is, let me play this clip. This is from General, what the hell is this guy's name? Petraeus. Not a big fan of this guy, by the way. And what did I say? History's repeating himself. It's weird. I realized that when I spoke on my last episode, when I told you this, when I was in the FBI, and I joined in 2004. So it's about 20 years ago, a little bit more. And that was the peak. Hey, Golden Tulip, good afternoon to you. So when I joined, that was the peak of the war on terror. And what did I tell them? I said, listen, this is FBI management. Our number one priority, meaning adversary, threat, enemy, whatever you could, there's a bit of a gray in these terminologies, but it's China. It's not radical Islamic terrorism. Well, 20 years later, I mean, what do you think? Are you really worried about terrorism? Well, I guess so, because now we're in Iran. And guess what? It's the same thing. What are we doing in Iran, except for Israel? It's not our number one threat. But then again, I said our number one threat is domestic. But anyway, let's hear what this general has to say, and you'll see.
If you were advising the president today, broaden out for us, what would you say is the single biggest threat to America's national security?
Now, I want to say this is a month ago. Now, what this general is saying is what I said. Now, I do want to caveat at this. I'm not saying, and I've said many times, I actually had the hardest stance on China than any politician. Why? I wouldn't let them become U.S. citizens, any of them. And I've said that. I don't see that make big of a difference between the Chinese government and the Chinese people. This is not negative or positive. It just is what it is. I just would not allow any Chinese to become American citizens. Hence, I'd also make a rule, you cannot serve in the U.S. military unless you're a U.S. citizen. You can't be in the government. And when I say that, I mean permanently. I mean, even if they could come to America on a visa and work here, even if they have children, I mean, the system is going to get worse before it gets changed. I wanted to get into birthright citizenship. It needs to be abolished. But what I am saying is China is not an evil empire. I know. Now, we could talk about another episode about live organ harvesting. Not going to confirm, not going to deny, but yeah, there's some evil stuff. All societies have it. Again, that's a different topic. But generally speaking, I don't look at China as an evil society. What I am looking at China is it is tired of America being the boss. And it wants to get bigger. It wants to get stronger. I don't think they want to rule the world like America does. They want to rule Asia. But I want to make that known that China is getting stronger. They are more of an adversary, a threat, per se, an enemy. But I don't look at them as evil per se. But if I was looking at our foreign adversaries, our foreign strategy, China would be number one. Have I changed my mind? Not much. It's been 20 years. I haven't changed my mind at all. But I guess Trump thinks that Iran is. But from the point of view of Israel, Iran could be the number one threat for Israel, which means I guess we really are fighting this war for Israel. I don't view Iran anywhere near being a top-notch threat for America when you compare it to Israel, or when you compare it to China. Think I'm wrong? I don't know. Not like I believe anymore these West Point generals. I think a lot of them suck, but it is what it is. We definitely have agreement on this. So let's hear what he says. Again, this is a month ago.
Security in this year and the coming years.
I think it has to be all China all the time. China is a possible adversary. It's certainly very, very severe competitor right now in the global economy. It's heartening to see that the two presidents met back late last year in Korea. It's good to see that there are additional meetings scheduled for this year, the first one coming up in April. But at the end of the day, there are real structural differences here. Deterrence in the Indo-Pacific really is the major mission of the U.S. military, noting that, yes, the administration has added new emphasis to securing our borders, activities in the Western Hemisphere, and so forth. But
That was retired General David Petraeus, who now runs Mideast operations for KKR. He joined me on Friday on this program, warning that China represents the largest foreign threat to the United States.
It's weird. This is a month ago. I guess they just pivoted, even Fox News, talking about Iran. But again, I would, looking at this, I would agree with. The only thing I would not say is we can't really call, again, I worked for the Boeing Corporation, that's called the Military Industrial Complex, in Beijing. I also work for Amazon, who's also part of our security apparatus to include. And what Amazon did to me was set me up. I've said this in other episodes, how my story is not getting out in terms of how traitorous both of these companies are. But what's my point? If I would have said, hi, Boeing management, hi, Amazon management, I think China's the enemy, you're fired. They would have fired me. So the point being is, before you try to convince the American public that China's the enemy, try to convince American corporations. Try to convince American corporations that China's the enemy, because they love money, and so they love China.
Russia, China, and Iran deploying naval vessels for joint military exercises in the Strait of Hormuz, a move seen as Tehran's response to increased U.S. military presence in the region. All of this following a second round of nuclear talks between the U.S. and Iran. Joining me now to break it all down is the Gatestone Institute Senior Fellow, Gordon Chang. Gordon, good to see you. Thank you.
Oh, God, I'm really not into this guy at all. Okay, this guy is an absolute warmonger. He wants us to fight his wars for him. He's paid for it. Not into him at all. So what I'm going to do is this. I want to talk really quick about this subject, and we're going to move on. And we're going to keep on the subject, but let me talk about this. It really shows to the American public. I'm telling you, you're going to believe me now, or you're going to believe me later. And I'm going to do a bit. More and more Americans are leaving America because I don't think you're going to stop this machine. You're not. Some people have ruled out. I'm changing the subject a little bit. That Tulsi Gabbard, which is interesting, even though I'm not a favor of women in leadership, that she might actually run for president. Like, she may actually resign soon. And Joe Kent. And oh, by the way, we found out more information about Joe Kent. Maybe he was under investigation. He was going to get fired, stuff like that. It changes the story some. There's no doubt about it. But I still look at Joe Kent as he did the right thing. He resigned. I agree with what he's saying, but it is true. It sounds like he was under investigation by the FBI, which we should also ask why. Again, I'm not a big fan of the FBI. They're corrupt. But again, we need to look at more data points on it. But overall, I still positive Joe Kent. But anyway, Joe Kent, Tulsi Gabbard seem to be aligned. They have an old friendship. She may resign. She may run for president in 2028. Guess what I think about this? Nothing's going to happen. I mean, it's possible if you can get a person like Donald Trump who goes farther right toward nationalism. But I still say no matter how you try to slice or dice this system is falling. And there's only three things to do. And I keep repeating it. So, I'm telling you, these videos are going to age like fine wine. One, you're going to have to leave America. More and more Americans are doing this, not like I have it. Two, you're going to have to get off the grid, I guess, be a farmer, which is, again, why you'll see a lot of these globalist entities are against farmers. They don't want you self-reliant. You're just going to be a farmer. You're going to get off the grid and just going to watch the storm. Or three, you're going to have to join some type of political movement in America that is state first and country second, sort of like a secession. There's nothing other getting away with that. Now, with that said, I see Giovanni's on here. Glad to join us till Giovanni's Golden Tulip. Let me just see whether we should or not in an argument. Just in the 12 months I ran in the proxy that fired times rather close, or 5,000 military and transport. Okay, we'll see where that goes. But anyway, let me talk quickly about Taiwan. I lived in Taiwan. It's a cool place, by the way. Taiwan, generally speaking, the quality of life in Taiwan versus mainland China, significant. Here's my point about that. First, Taiwan is compromised more than you could think. And oh, by the way, to the U.S. intelligence community that are using Taiwanese, yes, Taiwanese Americans for linguists, for translators, for intelligence analysts for the China, they're compromised. Yeah. So if you've lived in Taiwan, I'm going to give you an example too. It's very common to run into a Taiwanese couple where the man is Taiwanese and he married a mainland Chinese woman, and now they're living in Taiwan together. And their political ideology, whether you believe it or not, is pro-China. So don't assume. I can't remember the exact percentage, but I'm telling you, there are competing interests in Taiwan of you could say the independent Western American ideology, and the other ones that say we're part of China. So first of all, don't make the assumption that Taiwan is just one big conglomerate and that's it. Number two is, in terms of Taiwan, totally compromised in terms of intelligence. Just like you could say America is compromised by a foreign influence. I think we know who we're talking about here, Shabbat Shaloms. But anyway, Taiwan, totally compromised by the Chinese. Any type of operations that are being done in Taiwan, I would be very, very cautious. It's compromised with the China through Beijing. And number three, let me just say this. It doesn't matter. It's the same, and I'm not taking any other stance. It's the same stance I've said. What do I think about Ukraine? It is what it is. It's their war. What do I think about Taiwan? There. What do I think about Palestine and Israel? There. But now let's use some logic. It's weird. I still remember this. So I was a China major at West Point, and I still remember this story. It's so vivid, and I'm going to explain this story to you now and relate it what's going on with the current politics with China. At West Point, your cow year, your third year, you do what's called CTLT. I don't even remember what these acronyms are meaning anymore. But anyway, you for the summer, like a summer at West Point, you'll go out to an actual Army unit and you'll be like a platoon leader. So you're not a platoon leader yet. You'll be like a platoon leader assistant. It's basically like an internship. That's the best way to describe it. And you'll pick your unit, whatever, and you'll fly out there. So I was with the 4th Infantry Division in Fort Hood, Texas. It's cool. I got to fly out there and I spent a month with them shadowing a platoon leader, and we were in an Apache helicopter unit. I forgot what it was. The commander really liked me. He actually went to West Point, and I can't remember. He either got kicked out of West Point or he quit West Point. And then he went Army ROTC in college, and then, so he has a cool bond with West Point. I forgot. He either got kicked out or he quit. So he took a liking to me, and I had a good time. So, and I'm staying in what's called these officer barracks. I still remember this. So it would have been July of 1997. And I still remember this. I woke up it's kind of like a hotel room. It was a nice place. I'm staying there. And I turned on the television. I guess it was CNN. And I saw what? The handover of Hong Kong from Britain back to the mainland Chinese. This would have been in 1997. It was interesting. And Hong Kong's a pretty interesting place. The British, it's been a British colony. I could be off by a couple of years. It's about 150 years. That's a long time. 150 years, and that's also why Hong Kong's a nice place, thanks to the Brits. That's a different story about my view of colonization. Even the honky-conkies are very happy that they were colonized by the Brits. But anyway, 150 years was long, and that was the day that the Chinese military from mainland was literally marching over to Hong Kong, and the UK flag dropped. the Chinese flag came on, and change started. And the truth be told, Hong Kong is getting more and more Chinese and less British. Well, that shouldn't be a shock to anyone. Is it becoming less appetizing for foreigners? Yeah. In fact, the glory days were when it was a British colony. I talked with the Brits living there, some of the old ones. They were like, it's the best place on earth when it was a British colony. But it is what it is. It's not ours anymore. So what am I making here? If at that time, 1997, instead of Hong Kong legally being handed back to mainland China, Hong Kong became an independent country. Well, China would never allow it. Ding, 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 sort of like Taiwan. And China would also threaten to use military force if they need to be to get back Hong Kong. And what would we be doing? Not me, but what would our Western media, Western intelligence, Western government, Western military be saying? We have to save Hong Kong. If Hong Kong goes down, everything goes down. No, dude, it's not ours. It's China. And it is becoming more and more China-fied and less British every year. It really is. Even a lot of the people complain that the English fluency is dropping in Hong Kong. What do I think? It's not our country, people. It's not our country. It's China. But that same hyperbolic rhetoric would have been had. So then now I'm looking at you. Watch this. You're an American who doesn't even fucking know anything about Taiwan. And most Americans are some dumb fucks. I mean, mostly people are jerking off to OnlyFans. You're watching stupid CNN and Fox News and the football game, and then all of a sudden it's an expert on Taiwan. We're coming up to a Green Beret who's supposedly an expert on China. Anyway, all of a sudden, picture the news. China does a blitzkrieg attack, whatever you want to call it. Within 48 hours, boom, Taiwan is done. Because trust me, the Taiwanese are not going to fight. If Americans backed out, the Taiwanese are not going to fight. Sure, there could be a 1%, 2% population. They're not going to fight. But anyway, all of a sudden the news says Taiwan is now part of China. What do you think is going to happen, people? Nothing. Now, what it will show is a couple things. It will show another nail in the coffin of the American empire dropping. It will also show our alliances of other countries are going to be less likely to believe that America is going to come to their aid. But what I'm telling you is this American empire is going to fall. It's going to be the easy way or the hard way. And if you want to lose blood and treasure over Taiwan, you do it, not me. I don't pay taxes and I'm not fighting the military, but you're a moron. And I like the Taiwanese, but they are some racist fucking chinks. I like them, and they're better than the mainland China, but don't even fool yourself. How many times have you been to Taiwan and you met a white guy that's a Taiwanese citizen? Have you? I want to meet that person, or let alone a black guy. So the point is you, because I think a lot of Americans realize that now it really is turning into an American empire. You just don't have any choice now. That's why more Americans are leaving. So I think some of you are going to be like, dude, it doesn't matter who we vote for. The same thing's going to happen. Our tax money is going to be spent until you leave. But anyway, back to the point about Taiwan. It's going to happen sooner or later. You can do this hard way or the easy way. But once Taiwan goes back to China, guess what the world is going to do? Nothing much. Meaning this guy, Sean Ryan, and hopefully you saw the preview, Sean Ryan's a military veteran. Meaning, think about this. If you really are worried about China and a war, you probably want to be nice to military veterans to get people to join the military. So here's Sean Ryan. He knows about me 100%. Do you think he's helped me out? None. But yet China, if China's such a threat and we're going to have to go to war with them, I would probably be, hey, we need to start mobilizing the American men, come together. We don't care. So I'm just saying again, when Taiwan comes back into the fold of China, yeah, and it's like panicking. It's the same thing like we went. Remember the war on terror? Remember that? The rattle bells of the war on terror? 20 years, all that money, all that blood and treasure lost. And I guess we're still doing Iraq. I guess the war on terror. Did we win the war on terror or lose it? Or I guess we're just still going on. I'll do another video on Taiwan, but I want to let that sink in. Okay, China takes Taiwan tomorrow. Taiwan is now part of China. And don't fool yourself. I'd say 50% of the Taiwanese would be like, whatever, that's it. How would that affect your life? Now, in the broad picture, it will affect your life, but everything's going to affect it, meaning the American empire is falling, whether with Iran, whether with China, whether with our relations with Europe. All these factors are coming. It's falling. So Taiwan is just one of many nails in the coffin. But if you're willing not to do blood and treasure, maybe it'll soften the fall. But I don't care. I don't pay my taxes. I'm not going to join the military. So if you want to do it, you fucking idiots. But I like the Taiwanese, but I tell them to their face, I wouldn't spend any of my own money protecting the Taiwanese, and I'm not going to die for the Taiwanese. You think they would do it for you? We know it. And we know it, too, that the American corporations also don't really care about the Taiwanese people. It's just money. It's the same thing. Remember Iraqi freedom? Like we really cared about the people in Iraq. So I want to do this. Let's go. Let me do any comments. Let me know, because the next one, China gets nearly 40% of their Brent crude from the Persian Gulf, and perhaps there's some underwater navy, but there's no real ability to protect their shipping. Closer we are. I'm trying to read this. I don't see Great Britain as their colonies past the present are concerned for the U.S. as far as protecting them. One thing that's been accomplished, U.S. found out. Trying to read the comments here. So what we're going to do, I'm trying to lace this together with Iran. What is China getting an advantage of right now with the Iranian war is this. One, well, they're watching America bleed blood and treasure, number one. They're also realizing strategies and techniques, how our military warfare is being operated, the pros and cons. I mean, they get to study us. They're also looking at alliances, how strong and how weak the alliances are. They're also looking at America. So this is what I said, the best thing China can do right now is just sit back and shut up. If anyone doesn't believe me how bad they are in terms of soft power, remember that video that I did? It was a year ago where the Chinese people were in the UK and they were arguing, being filmed. Remember? And I went off on the Chinese. I'm like, these are the most stupid gooks I could think of. Their soft power is not very good. It's just not. I think it's not in their DNA. But so what I'm telling you is when China is winning the soft power with America, you know America is royally fucking it up. And like I said, when you go bombing other countries and starting wars, that's probably not a good way. And that's the good thing with China. China is actually, looking at history, they're not a very pro-war country. I know they're Sun Tzu and you believe it, but nothing like the British Empire and the American Empire. We love getting in wars. We love bombing and killing people in the name of freedom. That's what Americans love to do. Let's bomb and kill people in the name of freedom. So when you go around the world and do that or talk to NATO like this, really the best thing for China to do to increase their soft power is just shut up. Just shut up and let America do their thing. But anyway, let me go. We're going to do 1 minute. China has the best chance they've had to take Taiwan when the U.S. military. I really don't predict. Oh, here's something else. I want to say this on Taiwan, which is so different than America. When we go and fight these wars, do we really care about these people? I don't. Afghanistan, Iran. It's like Iraq War #2. Like President Bush was saying, it is time for us to liberate the people of Iraq, Iraqi freedom. I really don't care about the people in Iraq. Like the people in Iraq. Taiwan's different. Taiwan is different. Whether you understand this or not, listen and listen close. The Chinese government and the Chinese people look at the Taiwanese people as their brothers. It is, as their brothers and sisters. They look at the land of Taiwan as their land. So all the businesses, they don't want to destroy the infrastructure, and they really don't want to kill the people. They want to bring their family back in. That's a whole different level of understanding how they look. Where we really could care less. I mean, I'm not saying we should be doing this, but at the end of the day, if we went and just obliterated Iran, we shouldn't do this. I would be against this, but whatever. It's like boom, 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 whatever. China will not do that with Taiwan. I'd be amazed because they want it. And also, do you plan on? It's like Operation Iraqi Freedom in Afghanistan. Do you have any plans to live in those countries? Hell, I wouldn't even want to travel to those countries with a U.S. passport. Probably get killed. Taiwan's different. They want to unite like Hong Kong. They want cross-border. They want to be able to live there. It's family. So it's a totally different way where they're looking at it. than America looks at wars, where we really don't care. I mean, we're only doing these wars anyway for the American corporations, maybe for Israel, stuff like that. But we're not really looking at it from the hearts and mind. In Beijing, they look at Taiwan as the hearts and mind. They look at them as Chinese. They look at them at that land. Taiwan is a province of China. They want Taiwan to be strong and prosperous in the future. So it's a much more delicate process than just saying, why don't they just blow Taiwan up and kill all the people? Well, that's their family. They don't want to do that. Anyway, let's go on to this one thing. Oh yeah, so this is interesting. Let's just do this is a quick clip, and I'll do both sides.
If the U.S. went to
okay, so these are two people in one. These are both. One's a U.S. Army Ranger, and the other is a Green Beret. And guess what's interesting is I don't agree with either one, and I know more about China than either one, despite one person saying it. But either way, I'll correct this. It's pretty interesting.
What do you think would happen if the U.S. went to war with China?
Wouldn't be a U.S. anymore. Like, we would be thrown back into the Stone Age. Like, you got soldiers who are more concerned about can they wear a dress on the weekends? They put up a good fight. China would crush us.
Okay, so the person who just spoke is a former U.S. Army Ranger. It is what it is. We'll go. Now, this person is a Green Beret. I don't know this Green Beret that much, but politically, I think I agree with this Green Beret in some ways. But about China, so the Ranger is wrong, but guess what? This Green Beret is wrong too.
Welcome back to the channel, everybody. And woo boy, get some bold claims from former Army Ranger Nick Irving, saying that if the United States and China went to war, that the United States would get crushed, would get destroyed, that would get sent back to the Stone Age. Those are some big claims. You better have some serious knowledge to back that up. Now, we're going to check out an interview that was over on, I believe it's called Vlad TV, where they're talking about what would war between the United States and China actually look like. Actually, a pretty interesting topic. So I'm not here to attack Nick's character or his service. Seems like a really nice guy, but I am going to slap him around a little bit for a lot of the stuff that was said in this interview because it's just objectively wrong. All right. Now, you may be asking yourself, Nate, what do you know about China? All right. Let me give you my resume before we start. Okay, so I am a retired Green Beret, did over 10 years in Army Special Forces at a 1st Special Forces group, which, if you don't know, is the group that handles Asia, and we would be the ones that would handle war with China if it were to pop off. On top of that, I did my last 3 years of my career out at our forward operating base in Okinawa, which is the CJSOTF, the Combined Joint Special Operations Task Force, for the potential war between China and Taiwan on top.
Okay, there's no more to the video I did. So just like the Green Beret said, he's not gonna, denigrate the Army Ranger service. I'm gonna do the same thing with the Green Beret. I'm sure proud service. No, the Green Beret's level of China compared to my level of China is probably like a high schooler versus maybe even a PhD. Now let me explain why. First, a couple of things. You got to be careful about people who made careers in the government. If they made a career in the government, that's usually they think they were cool. It was good. Meaning, I left the government. I've said many times, I don't believe the best and the brightest are in our government. I do believe probably the top 1%, like in the FBI, the top 1% in the FBI, rock stars. The top 1% in the CIA, rock stars. Meaning, these are the people who could have went in the private sector, easily done very well, but you could say, for duty on our country, or they just loved it. They just loved that lifestyle. Most, on average, the best and the brightest are not in our government. They're in the private sector. Hence, that's why I quit. I wasn't impressed with it. The second is I'm very familiar with his unit that he's talking about, the Green Berets. Now, the unit in Japan will do cross-training in Taiwan. They'll never go to China, never. It's a little bit, I'm trying to use the best vocabulary to show you. It's like saying you lived in Canada and you're an American expert. But it's not close because Canada and America, the culture is similar. It's an open society. You could travel back and forth. It's not even close in terms of meaning living in Japan, even in Hong Kong. If you have, we all know this. We call, for instance, Singapore. Singapore is considered the lily pad of Asia. And if you're like, hey, man, I'm an Asia expert and I live in Singapore, no, it's westernized. Same thing with Hong Kong. Now, remember, I've been in Hong Kong at the latter part. The beginning was in China. And I've been to every single province in China except Tibet. I've never been to Tibet. So the point being is for the Green Beret, and these guys are light. I've got many friends in the Green Berets. Now, the difference between him and me is this. When you hear government people say they're an expert on this, what they're comparing is to the regular civilian. To a regular civilian, he probably is a China expert. Who am I comparing myself to? Everyone in the entire government. However, there could be people in the private sector who are much more knowledgeable than me. Like picture a guy, Goldman Sachs, who sat on the China desk for 20 years. These guys know China. But in the government, no, I know more about China than 99%. So what's the point on this? Well, you had an Army Ranger, and he's like, if we go to war with China, they're going to obliterate us. We're going to go back to the Stone Age, something like that. Not going to go on that part. But then you get the Green Beret, and I know we cut it short because it was a short clip, but he's going to say, no, we're stronger. There's 2 points that I want to mention out if there's a war with China. There's 2 points. And I think you, even as a civilian, you probably get this with common sense. First, you have to ask yourself, is it offensive or defensive? And there's a 99% chance if a war breaks out in America and China, America will be on the offensive. China will be on the defensive. Why? Because that's how we are. We're always attacking. In fact, if you look at our military bases in Asia, we're already on the offensive. Meaning, what would happen if China said, hey, they want to open up a military base in Venezuela or Cuba? I think, that's not going to happen. That's far away. Meaning, we wouldn't even allow that. So our posture, it's like a boxer who's already leaned in. I mean, you're ready to just bang. We're already leaned in. So we know if there's a war with China, we'll be the offensive and they'll be the defensive. Now, what does that mean? Well, basic military strategy and tactics, it's 3-to-1. So for every one soldier on the defense, you're going to need 3 people on the offense. Why? Because it's more dangerous. You're going to get killed. So one is, as we're on the offense, it's going to be much more complicated. We're going to have to use more resources. Our supply chains from America are going to be strained. It's just more complicated, meaning, to put it very simple, defensive wars, defensive operations are more simplistic than offense. That's number one. There's also morality. Think about America. I've always said we're not going to be able to draft American sons and daughters. But my assumption is always draft them to go off in foreign lands to go die for whatever. But what if America was attacked and you were defensive? Of course, I think a lot of American men would either join the draft or they'll join a militia, because it's easy for morale to say, hey, our country, our people, our homeland is under attack. We gotta go. That's going to be China. Whereas if you're on the offense, you'll be like another guy, like, what am I doing in this foreign land? I don't like these people. These people don't like me. Why am I dying here? So it's also a difficult thing to raise morale. It's the same reason. What are we doing? So you have to remember that if a war happens with China, America, 99% will be offensive, they'll be defensive. And that is a huge advantage, not just from operational standpoint, but something that we are forgetting many times. It's called morale. Just like Donald Trump is trying to build up the morale recruitment for the military, sometimes money and benefits aren't enough. People just don't want to die unless they have their heart in it. And when you're defending your mom, your dad, your children, your homeland, absolutely. Off in a foreign land? No. Now, what I would say is this. It is true, and I've said many times, I still believe the American military is the strongest military in the world. China's growing, though. And so what I'm saying is even though right now, Americans, the military is stronger than China, China's growing. And what I'm trying to say is in 10 years, I may have to reevaluate this because and again, the amount of money that we're spending, and part of the reason that our military is so good is the amount of money, which means your tax money, by the way. I hope you like the dollar going down and inflation going up. The amount of money that we pour into our defense, it is absolutely mind-boggling compared to these other countries. Well, sooner or later, you're going to have to pay the piper on that. But China is developing more and more. I'll leave it at that. There's a lot of scenarios to it, but let's go to the next video. But let me see. I know China is one of the top 3 threats. Muslims don't assimilate, this and that. I can tell you about the Muslim thing, though. It's pretty interesting. So I've been with the Uyghurs and Xinjiang. There's another video I'm going to do about espionage, the FBI, this and that. You could say what you want about China, but I could tell you something. When I was first living in Kunming, they had Islamic terrorist attacks. Do I believe what's happening in Xinjiang with the Uyghurs, could it be considered a genocide? Well, I'm not going to deny it. Let's just say that. I'm not going to deny it. But they don't fuck around in China anymore. No more terrorist attacks. I mean, I cannot understand when I see, especially in Europe too, for some reason, there's much more Islamic migration in Europe than America. But when I see pictures, particularly in Europe, white women, white men, getting raped, getting mugged, getting killed, like all this stuff. And then you look at the white man, that is unheard of in China. The Chinese government, they dropped the hammer on Islam. And I don't have a problem with Islam, but there's a time and a place, and Islam belongs to Islamic countries. And Europe and America, the West, are not Islamic countries. Hey, I really like Islam. I really like, I guess I'd say Islam. I really like Islam, how it is with feminism. That's a great way to destroy feminism. But still, there's a time and a place. China is not the home of Islam. Now, they cater to Islamic, to the religion, but it's not official. But any of this radical Islamic jihad or whatever that you could see, it is causing a problem in the West a lot with loose immigration. No, that ain't happening in China. Not happening. I mean, the one thing, like I said, that's another reason you'll never see me as a speaker for Chinese. I say a lot of negative things about China. One of the good things, though, the level of physical violence, we're talking illegal, rape, muggings, murder, stuff like that. In China, it's not even comparable to the West. So what they did to the Uyghurs, and I'm just being very honest with you, you call what the Uyghurs you want, but I can tell you something. If the Uyghur population in China was like 20% or 30%, there'd be a civil war. There's just, it's one of those issues. So anyway, China dropped the hammer on all types of Islams, and we'll talk about Christianity later, but it's safe. It's something that I don't understand. I still am amazed at what's going on in the West. On how, I've said this before, if you are a foreigner in China, in fact, I need to do that video with a black guy. There's another. If you are a foreigner in China and you physically assault a Chinese person, we're not even talking about rape. You just, fucking whack them. You could be in a world of hurt. A foreigner physically assaulting a Chinese citizen. But what happens in the West? I mean, you hear stories about white women in Europe getting raped by these blacks or whatever, and then the white women get accused of being a racist it's just weird. It's just very weird. That's what's going on in the West. But in China, no, they don't fool around with that. So so what I'm saying is why doesn't China, we always talk about this problem with Islam. China doesn't have that problem. They don't. They drop a hammer, and China does not officially recognize it as a religion. It's, they don't allow immigration. So why is China able to handle this, Muslims and Islam, but we don't? Probably we need to start looking at our immigration policies. That would be my thing. Let's talk about one thing, though, in terms of, we're going to talk one quick about the whole China thing here. Now, what this is a former ambassador, what he's saying about China is pretty true. It's actually very true.
In the world, those trains are fabulous.
We've
underestimated Chinese power in the world. Those trains are fabulous. We rode those trains. You can go from Beijing to Shanghai in 4.5 hours. And that's...
Yes, the one thing I would say is the amount of development, technological development that's happening in China. This is what I also say about the military. I do not believe the Chinese military now is as strong as the American military. But what's happening? America's declining and China's rising. So what have I said? In 10 years, ask me again. Ask me again. Well, in 10 years, let's see if America still is hanging around. America's getting worse and worse. But right now, I still would put on America. But still, offensive war, defensive war, there's still a lot of things to look at.
1,000 kilometers. Amtrak's just not like that. If you read a sellout from Boston to New York, but the level of infrastructure, here's the strengths, the infrastructure, that's one strength. Second, their scientific and technological capacity. That's the coin of the realm in our decade, in the next few decades. Which society will turn out more scientists and engineers?
In case you guys know, this is the former U.S. ambassador for China. I forgot the guy's name. Former U.S. ambassador for China.
Here's a data point. 34% of first-year students in Chinese universities study engineering or a STEM field.
Yeah, there was something else on another podcast when they said, hey, are most of the students in China studying STEM? And people were like, I don't know. Yes. You know, there's a lot of degrees in America that we call it the underwater basket weaving. I don't know, gender studies, stuff like that. And they said, is China like that? No. I mean, I think people with common sense could have guessed that. No. In China, they're studying more, or there's, finance, law, but a lot of these just worthless majors. And again, China's not inundated with racism or feminism, diversity, immigration. I mean, they could focus where we are just, it's going to get worse in America. And this is what I keep saying is perhaps diversity is not our strength. Perhaps unity is our strength, meaning a homogeneous society is superior to a heterogeneous society. And I've said many times, I believe a little diversity is our strength. Maybe that's where that saying came up with diversity is our strength. Because if you're in a society that's 100% homogenous, yeah, I think about 1%, 5% diversity, I think it actually could be a strength. Maybe that's where it came up with. But then it's gone overboard. Now we're going to be the minorities, white people, English language, European culture. Now, I mean, we all know diversity has went from a strength. It's going to be a poison. I mean, it's poisoning us. But yeah, China is not growing and getting stronger through diversity, through immigration. So how are they? I mean, what I'm trying to say with this video is if China has an inferior political system, then how are they getting stronger? It's a very simple question to ask. This should be taught now. I mean, I left the Harvard Kennedy School a long time. That's the previous opus of government studies. But if we're going to look, we constantly say that America has the best political system. If it is, then why are we intimidated by China? If we in America have the superior political system, then we should win. And some people may say we will. We're just, we hit a bump in the road. Okay, we'll see. But if we have the superior system and they have the inferior, then they should not succeed. The problem is they are succeeding. They are, and so many metrics. If you look at China 10 years ago, 20 years ago, even in my time, 15 years, it is unbelievable the amount of progress that I've seen. So how can they do that under a political system that we say is inferior? It's an interesting question. And what did I keep saying? I think about World War II, where we kept saying this thing called National Socialism, fascism, nationalism. This would be Adolf Hitler, is the most evil system in the world. Yet we thought Stalin, communism was good. That's why we teamed up with them. Now remember, I don't view China as communist anymore. Anyone know? If you've been to China, you know it's not communist anymore. I view it as fascism. And again, there's different grades of fascism, but it's not communism. It's definitely not our system. The best way I would describe China would be fascism. So if fascism is inferior to our liberal democratic capitalist system, then how are they getting so much stronger? To include soft power. We'll see. We'll see where this thing goes.
The United States of America, 5.6%. And they're a much bigger country. Harvard graduation, where I teach, when we ask our graduate students to stand up as a class, chemistry majors, biology majors, physics majors, largely Asian Americans, some American citizens, Asian.
No, I want you to notice this too. We are constantly saying race is not real, race doesn't matter. But at the same time, even this UN ambassador, we still like to say Asian Americans, African Americans, Jewish Americans. So is race important or not? Yes or no? I think it is. I think race is real, and I think race is important. Similar like gender. I think gender is real, and I think gender is important. But notice that we talk out our ass, or we're like racist, and it happens both sides. The Republicans and the Democrats do the same thing. It's time for us to stop talking about race. Stop talking about race. We're only people. Hey, did you know African Americans, Asian Americans? Look at this. So even in America, because I'm telling you, what's going to happen is you're going to see China rise more and more. You're going to start seeing particularly Chinese Americans. They're going to say, bye-bye, America. And you're going to say, wait a minute, man, we're both Americans. You're an American born and raised. I'm an American. They're going to say, no, dude, I'm Chinese American, and you're not. And my homeland is China. You're going to see that. It's going to happen.
American citizens of Asian ethnicity or Chinese. Last week, when President Trump gathered all the tech titans of the United States in the White House, tremendous number of those tech titans are Indian Americans and Chinese Americans.
Going back, he loves talking about race. Meaning, what I say is, let's just say it. Race is real and racism born. Look at it. You can say it's Democrats and Republicans constantly. Even Donald Trump would say, I've done so many things for the Black Americans. Is race real or not? It's like we're children. What is so difficult? Gender, it's real. It's important. Race, it's real. It's important. We go around the world. They look at us like morons. Trust me, a Chinese American will always look at themselves as Chinese first. An African American will look at themselves first as African, as Black. Race, your citizenship can be changed, not your race. Not your race.
We're not competing when it really matters for the future, and that's on technology. So, and I think the PLA, some people have said, well, it hasn't fought since 1978. What it's worth, I've seen the PLA. I think we've underestimated their military strength, their technology strength, and one other thing. The Communist Party of China is strategic, and they don't have to worry about, we want to worry about what the
He's right on this. What he's saying, this ambassador is correct.
Press says. I mean, that's a good thing to have the press challenging the government. They have nobody opposing them. And so they can make big bets over 10, 20, 30 years. Mary and I were mentioning one of them. For 35 consecutive years, the Chinese foreign minister, whoever that person is, has made his first trip of the year in January to Africa to show the Africans, you are our priority. I think President Trump never went to Africa in his first term. President Biden went once to Angola for 2 or 3 days in December, just before he resigned. They're strategic, and we're not competing on that level. So I think the Chinese and technology, military, economics are stronger than we think they are. And I think we've underestimated them, and we can't do that any longer.
So one of the things I've said many times is, and I saw this when I was studying Chinese at West Point, and that's how I got into it. I went to a public high school in New York. I wanted to study Chinese, ended up studying Spanish. So anyway, when I was at West Point, it was the first time I could get into the Chinese studies. And I always knew it, that just because you study something doesn't mean you totally agree with it. But you do give a sense of respect. If you learn a country, you learn a language, you learn a culture, it is a form of respect. There's no doubt about it. But that doesn't mean you're totally on their side. What am I saying? We don't have China experts anymore. We don't. I forgot this person's name. We'll bring him up. But he's talking about the need of America. I'm telling you, whether you like it or not, China is rising. And America's falling. And why is America falling? Because you shit on white man. You can take it what you want, but think about it. Look, when I'm in China, women, immigrants, and racial minorities, very little power. Very little power in China. Where is the power in China concentrated? Chinese men. Who founded America? White men, particularly white, heterosexual, Christian, Western European men. Those are our forefathers. If you are an American patriot, you should honor and respect our forefathers. And what do we have in America? More and more power to women, more and more power to racial minorities, more and more power to immigrants, marginalizing more and more white men. What, you think our forefathers would agree with this? In China, they revere their history because China is true. They have a much longer history than America does. And all through it is, who do they revere? The Chinese man, whether he's an emperor, the Chinese man. And what is in America? You know, there's this hatred for white men, marginalized, racist for white men. We're not repopulating. And the what? You think America, without strong white men, you really think we're going to have a Western society? How do you know? Have you ever lived as a racial minority? We'll see where this goes, but we're talking about China experts here. Let's see what he has to say.
This is a government and a system that the U.S. is, like it or not, China is on its way to becoming a global superpower. By some metrics, it's already there. And this is a government and a system that the U.S. is going to have to figure out how to coexist with. If we don't have people who understand how it works, whether it's Chinese society or the Chinese economy or the Chinese political system, we're going to get it wrong. And that might mean we miscalculate in our foreign policy decisions. Government needs to invest in China knowledge and in understanding China. And understanding China doesn't mean one.
Do you know how many retarded MAGA people, and I only say MAGA because I don't associate, even though I've said many times, the far left and the far right, I talk about we see eye to eye with these American globalist corporations. I really do. I think the far left and the far right realize these American globalist corporations are evil. They're not, it's not capitalism anymore. Anyway, but I focus more on MAGA, meaning I talk with them. You know how many morons are like, you're in China, man. You're the enemy. You're in China. Like, how retarded is that? I want to do a game with them. They were like, you're in China, so you're the enemy. Oh, I'm living in China. No, actually, I'm not in China. I'm located in Australia. Oh, okay. Okay, that's good. No, I'm not in Australia. I'm in Russia. No, man, you're the enemy. No, I'm not in Russia. I'm in Antarctica. I don't know. I never thought about that. Like, it's really dumb. It really just shows that I think part of also what's happened in America is the dumbing down of the white man. These are the people because I really don't have arguments with other people. I just don't have time. So it's usually with white men that are conservative, that are nationalists, that are military veterans. The amount of retardedness is beyond belief. And so, or I tell them, I'm like, so you have a problem with me being in China, but not the American corporations. So you don't have that. Like, for instance, did you go to Walmart? Yeah, I did projects with Walmart in China. Walmart loves China. So it's weird. It's truly our master. So the American corporation in China, that's okay, because you want to buy your cheap Chinese-made goods. But me being in China, that's wrong. Why? Articulate that. And it just makes you wonder, too, that our education system is really failing because there's a lot of retarded people that cannot articulate what are you trying to say? Why is that right? Why is that wrong? This and that. Where is your critical thinking?
Is sympathetic to China or compromised.
One way to understand China is by going there to study. So while nearly 15,000 U.S. students were studying abroad in China in the 2011-2012 school year, less than 2,000 U.S. students were studying abroad in China in the 2023-2024 school year. Why are fewer Americans studying abroad in China?
Now, this is true. I've said it before. This was my issue with Amazon. I ended up quitting Amazon. When I first went to China in 2010, the quality of life was pretty cool. It was more open. It's a crackdown now. So like when people say, hey, David, should I move to China? My first question is, are you Chinese American? Because if you're Chinese American, it's a different story. If you're not, I wouldn't recommend China. Now, that's nothing against them, but I'm telling you, nationalism is on the rise in China. And if you're a foreigner, it's not. Hong Kong is a little different. Taiwan's also a little different. But mainland China, it's very different. So you're starting to see less and less people want to live in China. I get it. But it's also forming a gap, and that gap's going to become more and more dangerous.
China.
So I think it's important to note that there are still a lot of students studying China. There's a lot of students studying Chinese. There's a lot of students interested in the Chinese system.
We're going to go to one last video here, and because we're trying to look at another angle on this war with China. So let me this will be the last video, and then we'll close it out.
Professor, you predicted in 2009 that America's era as the world's only superpower was ending.
Oh, yes, and I think that is true. We haven't talked about China, but I believe that since Trump has come into office, he's making China number one. His tariffs have done nothing but help China.
Yeah, I said this before. I view Trump more and more as make American, or we'll say America first, American corporations first, not necessarily American citizens first. If you understand tariffs, and I'm not against tariffs, but there's a double-edged sword, but it's really to protect American business, not the American citizen. And if you're thinking business like, yeah, man, the small business entrepreneur, the mom, those are dead. We don't have those anymore. The American corporations, I work for Amazon, their job is to destroy them. So it's really protecting these American globalist corporations. What do you think about them as an American? You really want to protect these? But that's what it is. It's more about American corporations first, less about American citizens first.
Been on charm offensive since the tariffs have been, and they're picking up all the pieces. I was just spent 2 weeks in China in June while we were bombing Iran. I said I had to learn how to do social media. I toured advanced industries in China for 2 solid weeks. One of the most amazing trips I've ever had in my whole career. And it was.
So I say this again. If you look at my resume, I probably have 3 grown men's experience in one. I have done a lot in my life. But I've said 2 of the biggest things that have changed my life, that have an influence on my life outside childhood. We all agree that your childhood, your father, your mother, I would definitely put that as number 1. But after that, probably the military, going through West Point and the military. I think a lot of military veterans understand it's a very different world in the military. It's a different culture. It's very different than the civilian world, and you learn a lot. Then I'd say China. China is just, it is for the good and for the bad. And everyone knows I'm not on the China bandwagon, but a lot of my political ideology that I'm as a nationalist, I've learned that from China. And also China has taught me, don't be afraid of being called the racist, because those chinks are some of the most racist people I've ever seen in the world. Makes me feel good as a white man, because what were we brainwashed in America? Racist. I mean, if I was ever on these shows now, I'm just waiting for people to say, David, do you consider yourself a racist? Like, you see all these people all the time, these white people, they're like, oh, they get so nervous and like, I got a black friend. Did I tell you my wife, I want to mix kids? Like, we do get really nervous. After living in China, it's so, I find it the most hilarious thing, because the person who's saying is mentally retarded. So China, if you go there as an American, a Westerner, it is different. I describe it as Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory. I mean, it is just really different. And that's what you need many times to learn. I really need to do videos more on my times in China, what I've done, but I could tell you. And I've also learned too, if you think our government yo-yos get China, you're like, but David, aren't these State Department diplomats and CIA and DIA and FBI, they're morons. They're morons. They're not. The best and the brightest are not in our government. It's just they don't get it. And they are going to take you down the toilet bowl. You think the Iran thing is going to help you out in the future? It's going to happen in China. And the best way to look at it, maybe this is a good example. I'm trying to do the best example. I had an older brother. You might have an older brother. There comes a time, it might, where the older brother picks on the younger brother, which is normal. It's good. I actually enjoyed it when my brother picked on me. It gives you good leadership lessons. But there could be a time where the younger brother eventually gets bigger, stronger, or whatever than the older brother, whatever, 19, 20, 21, something like that. And the younger brother says, the days of you picking on me are over, big brother or older brother. But we can still be friends. We're brothers. But you ain't doing that to me anymore. That's the best way to describe China in some ways. And that is, or maybe an example is you work in a company and you work, but you think to yourself, you want to be your own boss. So you save your money and you want to open up your own company. It's going to compete with your boss, whatever. Maybe your boss sells tires and you've been working in that company for 10 years. You've learned the trade and you said, hey, boss, I want to open up my own company and I want to sell tires. What are you, a trader? It's not that I'm a trader, boss, but you're a boss and you make good money and you have freedom. I want to be like you. I've learned from you. I also want to be an entrepreneur. I want us to still be friends. We are going to compete with each other, but that doesn't mean we have to be enemies. Guess what? There's more and more countries around the world that are just tired of America being the boss. What about you as an American citizen? Are you? I'm tired of it. Even the amount of if you ask me who's destroyed my life, career, reputation the most, it's the American government. No other foreign government has destroyed my life more than the American government. So that's where I would look at it in terms of this evil empire. We all have desires, even Maslow's chart, where individual societies and countries, we just want to grow. But this theory that I learned that China is this evil empire that wants to take over the world, I totally disagree with that at all. I mean, look at the track record. Who would you put money on who's going to start the next war? We've already dropped 2 atomic bombs on Japan. If I would guess who's going to drop an atomic bomb next, America or Israel. I would put America, Israel as my number one choices. Who's probably going to drop another atomic bomb? So anyway, it's just food for thought. But I can tell you the stuff that I've learned, and this is what you need in terms of leadership. You don't want to have your leader always learning from the same environment. You have to go out to learn from different environments, leaving the government, going into the private sector. This is where true growth comes. If we are going to have relations with China, what you don't want to do, and this is what I told the dumb fucking FBI, they're stupid. You don't want to have people in America who don't have any China experience. You want them to go there. You want them to learn. It just is what it is. Otherwise, that lack of knowledge is going to create more dangerous situations.
Stunning. So, Stephen, since COVID, almost nobody has gone to China. Now, if they have, they've gone to Beijing or Shanghai. They haven't gone to Wuhan. They haven't gone to Shenzhen, visited the BYD electric car factories, seen the robots that are now doing the metallurgy. And you can't see it very well on the web because China's keeping it to themselves. They don't want to brag about it. They're motoring ahead. So Wuhan, to give you an example, Wuhan is kind of like Pittsburgh. It's a bigger version of Pittsburgh. It's an old steel area. That's not Wuhan today. Wuhan today is the AI. It's developing not just a robotic company. They're uplifting 9 million people in Wuhan. Their medicine is improved. Their infrastructure is improved. They have more construction jobs than ever before because they have to build so much to uplift the whole 9 million people. This is what Pittsburgh should have been and hasn't been. And I know, I'm from Western Pennsylvania. It's heartbreaking to me to watch what's happened to Pittsburgh over the last 30 or 40 years. Wuhan, exactly the same trajectory, an old steel city, is now one of the leaders here they have a robotic Silicon Valley there that I visited and so forth.
And why does this matter? Why does it matter if the US are no longer the world superpower? What then does history tell us is the consequence of that?
The consequence is, first of all, you get enormous tension here for violence.
Well, there's no doubt about it. There's going to be a transition period, and that is going to be the most violent period. And America will start the war. Why? Because it's just normal. When you are losing the status quo, meaning America's going down, China's going up. So China's the happy person. We all know that. It's the one who's going to lose their dominance. Doesn't matter what field, what it is. So America is going to fight tooth and nail not to lose the place of becoming the superpower. I don't believe China is going to replace America as a superpower. That's not. They're fine in a multipolar world. But America is not going to like losing the helm of being a superpower. And so what are we going to do? We're going to start a war. 100%. We're going to start, we're already in a war in Iran. We'll start. And that goes back to the question with the Green Beret and the Army Ranger. We'll be on the offensive. China's going to be on the defensive. But guess what's happening? Remember that first video I did, or the first thing when Trump was talking about NATO? Even when Trump talked about Greenland. And I'm totally for getting out of NATO financially. They need to pay. The Europeans need to pay. But they're our allies. If you're an American, particularly a white American, a European American, those are brothers. I got to admit, I'm different than Europe, meaning I talk all the time about I don't care about Iran. I mean, I do in a global perspective. We don't want to see people raped and murdered. And I do think there's a universal caring of children. But generally speaking, I could be more numb to these other countries. But Who are we? Faith, family, freedom. What if a country is a Christian country? What if a country is a European country? And what if a country values freedom? Or basically, what if the country is our forefathers? That's who we hail from. We hail from Western Europe. So I do have concern for Western Europe in a bigger sense. So anyway, going back to that part about China and America, we are losing our status. And when we lose that in so many realms, we're going to be the first ones to pull the trigger. You know that. That shouldn't be a surprise to anyone.
So when you see big hegemonic shifts, that means when one leader, the world's number one, becomes replaced by another, bad things happen. This is what happened, how you got the wars between Britain and France. When they were fighting their wars, this is how you got essentially World War I, because of the rise and fall of Germany versus Russia versus Britain. So these rising and fall, they make a huge difference. Doesn't always happen. The one time it was peaceful was when America replaced Britain as number one. So just think about that. But other times have been very
well, and that was always, I think he's referring to World War II. That was because Britain knew that if America did not join the war, Germany was going to win. So that's why there was, you could say, a peaceful hand. In fact, World War II brought two transitions. World War II is what brought America into superpower dominance. But also, whether you know, World War II is how the British Empire collapsed. They lost it. But the point being is, why was the relationship with Britain and America? Well, because they asked us for help. They said, well, we would rather give the mantle to America, which we have a lot of British language. You know, George Washington came from Britain. They would rather hand us the mantle of leadership than let the Germans take over. So that's a very different example of why there wasn't violence in that transition. I believe in this transition, though, like I said, I don't believe China is going to take the mantle of the global superpower. I believe it's going to be a multipolar world, but there's going to be a transition where America is going to lose that preeminent status. And then when that transition happens, I think it's going to be violent. I think America will start another major war, and that could be a World War III. And I think America is going to start it.
Tense.
So how does China feel that the US are now at war with the Middle East?
So what's interesting is, to get ready for coming on here, I listened to the All In podcast, and I hope that's okay to talk about somebody else's podcast.
I love that show.
I think they're brilliant, by the way. I love it. But what they said, just in the most recent, is that Trump's playing a game for China. What they said is China's shaking in its boots, and that what this is about is it's kind of Venezuela plus Iran is all about to cause Xi to be shaking in his boots in April, so that he will somehow make some bigger.
Yeah, some people say that too. They're like, these are the mags. They're like, you don't understand. Trump is playing 4D chess. He's going to take the oil away in Venezuela. He's going to take the oil away, which is called imperialism, but whatever. Again, you live by the sword, you die by the sword. I'm not going to join the military anymore. Anyway, we take the oil away from China. We're coming around. Keep it up. Like I said, in terms of soft power, the best thing China can do is just nothing. Just stay back and just work in the shadows with the partners. America, we are like the bull in the China shop. We're just going to break everything. It's cool. It sounds cool. Hey, we're Americans. We're the big tough guys. We can do whatever we want. When you get the power, you can. What's power? Gold and the guns. Do we have the gold and the guns anymore? Well, it's deteriorating. We'll see where it goes. But we're losing friends, and we are losing power.
Deal with Trump. I think this is just wrong. I think that it may be that there's some, China does absolutely buy 90% of Iran's oil. We're not disagreeing with the facts of the matter. It's the interpretation and the consequences for who's going to be number one down the road. So my assessment here is China is probably thrilled that we're on the verge of getting into another quagmire in the Middle East. and that they would gladly give up. They have about 20% of their GDP that energy, not GDP, 20% of their energy. It's a much smaller fraction of their GDP that turns on the oil issue. Most of their energy is not generated through oil. And so I think they would really, if they had to give all of the Middle Eastern oil up to suck us in to another forever war with Iran that would go on for years and years, oh my goodness gracious, because they see themselves as growing through Asia and spreading their wings through Asia. And so to get us pinned down in the Middle East with an even bigger problem than we had with Iraq, this is manna from heaven for China. That's what I saw when I was there.
If I was Putin or if I was running China, based on everything you've said and based on everything I know, I would really want this war to go on for a long time.
Oh, for sure.
I'd really be helping Iran, prolong this thing. And also because Russia...
You ever find it weird? We reported that Russia is supplying Iran with intelligence on American military targets in the Middle East. And we're like, how dare they? That's what we're doing with Ukraine. I mean, what do you think if you were China and Russia? You wouldn't be helping out Iran. Again, it's a delicate balance. You don't want to get drawn in yourself. But if you could help out Iran, if you were China or Russia, without making your country vulnerable, making sacrifices, you wouldn't do it. You're not viewing America. But we're almost astounded. Like, I cannot believe that Russia would be helping out Iran in this war like we help out Ukraine in their war. It makes you wonder what the logic is with Americans.
In their own situation at the moment with Ukraine. So it's quite a distraction from whatever Putin's objectives are in Ukraine. No one's really talking about Ukraine this week.
And it's bad for the Ukrainians because what's happening is by the little bit that Putin has gotten himself involved here, there is a chance he set the stage for a deal, which is, again, America stops the intel to the Ukrainians if Russia will stop the intel to Iran. That is much, much, much to Putin's advantage with Ukraine. So I think that you have a situation here, Stephen, where Putin, it's not so much he's itching to get in the fight, is he's trying to do it in ways that he gets something out of it in his relations war with Ukraine. Think about that with President Xi. I don't think the Chinese want to get in the fight. I think, in fact, right now, if I'm assessing this correctly, they're probably not wanting to get in the way of a...
No way. I would be absolutely amazed. What you're going to see, though, is China's already using soft power. They're sending the Chinese version of the Red Cross and helping out, whether it be Lebanon or other countries in the Middle East. They're going to continue soft power, but not, and that soft power, it'll be used and it'll be definitely visible in all forms in a positive light. Again, just helping out in that sense of a Red Cross. They'll be using back channels to help out, but to get engaged directly in any type of military conflict, I would be shocked beyond belief for two reasons. One, it's not their nature, and two, they're still intimidated by the American military. The Chinese are intimidated by the American. They don't want to start a fight with America because they're intimidated by America. But also, it's just not in their nature. I talk to them all. They're like, why are you Americans so violent? You got to remember, we love violence. Like in America, I mean, you could tell a girl's like, so what sports do you play? Like, I don't know. I'm a linebacker, football. I'm a boxer. I mean, we just like violence. We think it's cool. The Chinese are just not into that. They're just their culture. And this is where you have to realize that race is real. Even me, born and raised in New York. New York is probably one of the most international, if not the most international city in the world. In the world, New York City. And if you look at New York City and you only look at people born and raised, so we're not talking immigrants, born and raised in New York, but different races, you will still see different cultures. With the blacks, the Italians, the Jews, the Asians, all born and raised in not just a country, not just a state, in a city, in the same city, born and raised. It's not that way in China. Why? Because if you look at New York City, New York City is our biggest city in America. If someone wants to tell me the population, I forgot, what is it, like 12 million or something like that? That's nothing compared to China. In these Chongqing, Shanghai, Beijing. So these cities are also even bigger than New York City. But They're homogeneous. So if you find Beijingers or Shanghaiers, Chongqing, population also is phenomenal, but they're all Chinese. And if they're all born and raised in that city, it is so much more homogeneous. So this thing about culture, you got to start asking yourself, look at America. Look at America, the same city. We're not talking immigrants, born and raised in the same city. And if you go to New York, boom. So what am I trying to tell you? Race is real. It is deeper. To say race is skin color, it's insulting. It's insulting to all races. Africa has a long lineage of culture and history. To say Africa is nothing more than black skin is absolutely insulting. So look at an Asian person, say, you guys are Asian, you're the same as me, you just have yellow skin. It is the most insulting thing. Asia has a long history of culture, traditions. European, to say you're just white. Europe, where we come from. So what am I saying? You have to, if you're going to study leadership, you have to study race. And I'm telling you that the Chinese, they don't, even when I'm in China, when I'm in Shanghai, I usually, if there was ever a bar fight, it would be two Brits or Americans. We have to, it's the same thing with gender. You could raise a boy and a girl exactly the same, but you'll eventually see that the boy and the girl will just start deviating. Testosterone, estrogen, and the boy just wants to do rowdy stuff, and the girl may be more docile. But we have to agree that gender is real and it will affect culture. Gender affects culture. Guess what? Race affects culture. So going back to that original statement about China not getting involved, they will get involved soft power. They already are. Soft power. And of course, militarily intelligence behind the scenes, yes. But an actual military, no way. Why? One, they're intimidated by the American military. Now, in 10 years, I may change my mind. But it's more than that. They're not into that. They really do look at Americans as wild cowboys. They're like, you people are just wild. Even when I did my MBA in Switzerland, I realized too, you started realizing the difference between the Europeans and the Americans. Remember, we are a different group of Europeans. It's great. Even in Europe, I know I'm doing a tangent here. Like Europe, there's diversity. You got the Italians, you got the Irish, you got the Swedes, the German, which is great. There's even diversity in Europe. You have blonde hair, black hair. But I think the Americans were a different breed of Europeans, the original ones, that we said we're leaving Europe, which could have been considered safe at that time, and we want adventure. We want risk. We actually like danger. And that goes into violence. But the Chinese talk to me all the time. They're like, you Americans, and they sometimes say this in admiration. They look at that crowd, they said, you guys are some dangerous people. They're just not into it. I mean, Donald Trump, and one of the reasons I do like Donald Trump, he's got a bit of that, fuck them, let's go. And it's part of our nature. So again, part of the reason why I have no doubt about it, China will not get involved militarily, unless it's defensive. But again, we're talking about the Middle East. That's not a defensive posture. It's, again, they're intimidated by the American military. I mean, their military is not strong enough yet to take on America. Again, if it's defense, then you have no options. You have to defend yourself. That's the power of defense. But two, it's just in their nature. I mean, a lot of the Chinese would rather just drink tea, play mahjong, and just eat some jiaozhens and baozas. I mean, it's a very different culture than America.
Enemy who's shooting himself in both feet. So right now, America's damaging itself a lot more than China could. And if China inserts itself, there's a very good chance then that would help Trump, again, pull a rabbit out of a hat. I don't think they want to do that. I think right now, you just look at this from, we're running out of what's called standoff PGMs. Remember Secretary Hegseth said, well, yeah, okay, we're running out of standoff PGMs, but we're going to do something from the bombs that we can drop more over country. Well, that's a problem for Taiwan. If we're going to defend Taiwan, we've got to do this with long standoff precision weapons.
You're going to see, I've been listening to this whole thing, but now we're getting into Taiwan. Taiwan will be a losing war. The reason why China is so fierce about Taiwan is, what did I say? That's a defensive war. That's their homeland. We've all seen the movie Red Dawn. Remember I talk again about the draft? If we were actually invaded in America, no, that's a different story. American men would pick up their rifles and they would kill anything coming our way. But again, we're talking offensive. Here we are. I mean, most Americans probably wouldn't even know where Taiwan is on the map. China, on the other hand, that is their homeland. They will fight to the death for that. It's not our battle. You think it is? Then you go. You spend your tax money and you send your son or daughter to die for Taiwan. I just wouldn't do it.
And everybody who studies this knows that. So if we're really running low on standoff precision weapons, she's just licking his chops thinking, my goodness, how much better does this get?
If Trump was listening, probably not the case. I think he just watches CNN and Fox News. But if Trump was listening, what would you say to him?
What I would tell him is take the deal. I would say stop right now and do everything possible to go back to the deal you reject.
Okay, let's end it here. So here's this couple predictions I'm going to say. It's going to end horrible in Iran. And what I'm trying to say is we're going to do the same prediction that I had back in 2005 in the FBI. 2005, radical Islamic terrorism was considered by the U.S. government our number one threat. I mean, we've been on this war of terror now, 20 years? I mean, it was Afghanistan, complete failure. Not for China. China's now in Afghanistan, not with guns, but with money. They want to do business deals, and they have much better relations. So it went to China's hands. Same thing with Iraq. So complete failure is the global war on terror. And what did I say back then? China's the number one threat. I don't view China as an evil empire, though. But they are the number one threat, the number one adversary. Maybe that's a more politically correct word to say, adversary. But again, our number one threat is domestic. I keep sometimes forgetting the number one threat is domestic in America, without a doubt. But if you're looking overseas, it would be China. So here we are, 20 years later, and now I guess we're still fighting the war on terror, Iran, radical Islamic terrorism. And what have I kept saying? It's still China. And during this whole war on terror, as we're bleeding out blood and treasure, but what has China been doing? Building. They're building. And no matter what you say, because remember, as we bleed blood and treasure, not the military-industrial complex, not the generals, not the Boeing Corporation who loves China, and not our corrupt politicians. Our politicians are corrupt. They get rich, but the American middle class gets wiped out. Soldiers are going to be dead, and your tax money's coming up, and the U.S. dollar's going down. But there's always a winning class. Even in the Great Depression, there's always that winning class. But what is China doing? China's not really interested in having, these war expeditions. They want to build up domestically, and that's what they've been doing. And so here we are. It's weird. 20 years later, and we're really in the same. I'm saying the same thing. China's the number one threat. Not evil, though, but they are a competitor overseas. And here we are in Iran. And we have dumb MAGA people that think, well, Afghanistan was a failure. Iraq was a failure, but not Iran. We're going to win. And here's my quick question to you. And I've said this many. What's the objective in Iran? Is to make Iran permanently never able to have a nuclear weapon for the rest of their life? The only two ways: we're going to have to nuke them off the face of this planet, or we're going to have to do a permanent regime change. Permanent. We don't have the power. We don't have the manpower to do that. And if we're so worried about weapons, and I think this is more about Israel. Israel's more worried from Iran than us. Then what are we going to do? What does that send a message to other countries like China, Russia, North Korea? Meaning, if nuclear weapons are off the table, then we're going to come for them. They better get ready. And then if you look at history again, who's the only country that dropped these weapons in war? America and Japan. We'll see where this goes. But again, the bigger picture is we keep, Trump got elected. We're doing the news cycle. Everything's going around and around. You're like, where is this going, David? Where is this going? There's always this news cycle that's going. I think ultimately I'm going straight back to what I've said. Nothing's going to change until this American empire collapses. You're still going to pay your taxes unless you can figure out a way out of it, leave America some. You're still going to pay your taxes. You're still going to believe that voting is going to fix the problem, right? There's going to be maybe Trump, something like that, not going to do it. And so I keep saying this train is going to keep clunking down until it collapses, but China's growing. It's going to continue to grow and grow and grow. The only thing I thought of is I just left America. It's not the perfect situation, but it's one, and I need to do a video on it. But again, let's see where this war takes us in Iran. I think it's going to be a complete failure. It's going to be a complete failure like usual. And China will watch and learn, and China's going to continue to grow. And sooner or later, Americans, like it or not, are going to come to the realization that the American empire is no longer going to be the global superpower. And the world is going to become some type of multipolar world. China's going to be significant, and that's just the way it is. And one of the ways it probably is who made America great? Our forefathers. And who were they? Well, they were white guys from Europe. They were heterosexuals. They were Christians. They were this and that. And if we marginalize that group, which we do all the time in America, more and more and more, how could the outcome of America be anything other than decline or collapse? Because we in America are communists. Why? Because diversity is our strength. David Baumblatt from Terrapin to Leadership. I appreciate your support to the Patriots. Lead to victory.